call the meeting to order. This is agenda meeting here for April. I wanted to introduce a guest here who will be making a short presentation on this issue, young lungs at play. I guess this is an issue the council had discussed in previous years. It's really an opportunity to try to create smoke-free zones in our public spaces, particularly where young kids are playing. It's being adopted really Commonwealth-wide, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. I think one of the issues that council had to pass was enforcement. As you know, there's a lot of laws on the books in this town, and our police prioritize, like you would in the triage. If a patient is losing blood or is not able to breathe, they get attention quicker than someone who has a backache or a headache. So in the same way, laws are enforced or patrolled, and resources are given to them dependent on the severity of public health and safety and harm. Quite frankly, the Young Lungs at Play program is an exciting way, I think, for kids who are more and more struggling with issues of asthma to be able to play in a smoke-free environment. It enables parents and others to help each other respect the children who are playing in that environment. Quite frankly, it cuts down on garbage. And if anyone's spent any time in parks, you know the garbage that's produced by cigarette butts being cast about in the public space. But what I wanted to do was give council an opportunity to hear from Ann about it. Ann's provided for you a bag here with some things about the benefits of smoke-free environments. I worked with Ann for a couple years at Penn State Cooperative Extension. Very proud to know her. It's exciting to see how the program is growing statewide and in this county, and even getting attention nationally. And I'd love for the city of Latrobe to really jump on the bandwagon and again, with our great park systems, feature this within them. And I guess you also have Esther as well from the Penn State Cooperative Extension.
Okay, thank you very much. So thank you very much for giving me a few minutes of time. And I do appreciate the fact that you gave this program some consideration some time ago, and I'm glad to be here for a visit, because that shows that there is interest in this program from within your community. There is support for the program, particularly when it involves children. With me today is Esther Ullery, and some of you may know Esther. She was a teacher here in Latrobe. She now works with Penn State Cooperative Extension on tobacco prevention initiatives. I just want to start out by telling you what this program is not about, before I tell you what it is about. This is not about making tobacco users feel uncomfortable. This is not about criticizing them. This is not about saying that people who use tobacco are bad people. This is about tobacco being bad for our public health and compromising the health of our children. Whether you use tobacco or not, everyone in this room is most likely a victim of tobacco. Either you know someone you care deeply about whose health has been affected, or you've lost someone from tobacco use. It is the leading cause of death and disability in the United States. And it kills the non-users too. About 50,000 people who are non-smokers, and that includes children, die every year from exposure to tobacco smoke. It is the #1 source of litter in our parks and playgrounds. And it's toxic waste. And Esther can tell you a story that children, we make our parks handicapped accessible, but children who are handicapped, or children period, see tobacco litter and pick it up and eat it. Animals eat it, right? So it's toxic waste. But what I want to tell you mostly about is the momentum that we're gaining in the state of Pennsylvania. I've been working on the initiative since June of 2010. And in June of 2010, I began to introduce the program to municipalities. I wasn't alone. There were 18 other counties in the state, and from 18 counties, we got all 67 on board, so all 67 counties in the state of Pennsylvania are working towards this initiative. Since we've started, about 260 municipalities have adopted policies to restrict tobacco use in their parks and playgrounds. And so what are we asking municipalities to do is to adopt an ordinance or a resolution, a law that states that smoking or the use of tobacco is not prohibited in areas where children play. Is not prohibited. Is prohibited. Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Is prohibited where children play. And so why is that important around children? Because they are the most vulnerable to tobacco. Believe it or not, tobacco definitely targets our young people. They are designing new tobacco products every day as we speak to entice them to use that. Roughly 1/3 of the children who started are going to die prematurely from a tobacco-related chronic illness. And about 1,300 children start every single day their first cigarette. And most of them do this around people they know, people they are most comfortable with, people they're most familiar with, their friends. Your parks should be healthy places where children play. It should be where they learn team sports. It's where they should learn leadership skills. It's where they should learn to conserve the earth and be earth-friendly. But parks should not be a place where children learn to chew or smoke tobacco. So what we're asking you to do is adopt a policy that would restrict tobacco use in family-friendly areas. What we will do is provide you with these signs. The signs are not confrontational. The signs will help to create awareness of the policies. The signs will help people to recognize that there is a policy, and if someone's violating the policy, they can refer to the sign and remind them that there is a policy that prohibits tobacco use. The signs also provide a resource for anyone who wants to quit using tobacco. So if a parent should come to a playground and they've considered quitting for their children, here's a free resource that they can call to help quit, to get free quit advice. So that's what this program is about. I hope you'll give it reconsideration, and I would like to address any questions you have. I want to let you know that in your packets, you do have what is called our honor roll, and the honor roll lists every community in the state that has adopted Young Lungs of Play. I can tell you that none of these municipalities have encountered any challenges to the enforcement clause. They've not encountered any confrontation in regard to the policy. Most communities agree to adopt the program. And we do give you a template too for a sample ordinance. And an ordinance is the strongest statement that a municipality can make in regard to a restriction, but you can also adopt a resolution as well. All we ask that you do is to address the fact that tobacco use is prohibited, that you have some type of method of communicating the policy to your constituents, and that you state that there's some type of enforcement or compliance request, that you'll either monitor the area or you'll ask violators to leave the area if they're using a tobacco product. I do want to let you know that Parks and Recreation, which is a national magazine, wrote about the emerging policies in regard to tobacco use in our parks, and they actually featured our Young Lungs of Play sign. Just last week, I got a call from the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. They're thinking of piloting this program in state parks. And I was interviewed last week by a recreational athletic magazine too, that their circulation is within North America and Canada. They too are going to be featuring the momentum that is gaining statewide, nationwide actually, for protecting our children from tobacco use where they play. Esther, do you want to say a few words having worked with kids?
No, I just think that the city of Latrobe is such a wonderful family-oriented area. And you have Legion Keener, the wonderful part of playground area. The children actually did, because I was part of that teaching in here, working with the kids as we built that area. And when we think about children today, with all the children with asthma and bronchitis and things like that, and when they're exposed to tobacco smoke, how it affects them, I think I, as a grandparent too, grandparents bring their children, and what do we want to see? We want to bring our children someplace that's really healthy. And in Unity Township, we have the same, parts that we need to address with the same issue, to make sure that the children are in an environment where they're not exposed to that. We're not asking you to stop smoking, we're not asking you to change your habit, we're asking you to protect the children.
Just a note again in your packet, there's sample ordinance and resolution. The honor roll of communities, Derry Borough, Derry Township,
New Alexandria.
the New Alexandria, local ones. Penn Township is one of the largest townships here, City of Menneson and Westmoreland County. So there's about 15 or 20 here in Westmoreland County that have already adopted it. And I imagine another year, the way Ann works, there'll be another 15 or 20 more, and hate to see Latrobe follow anyone. I'd like us to be a leader and join while there's still opportunity. Any questions?
Any concerns?
My previous concern was the enforcement. Perhaps that's a moot point this time.
Well, and like I said, what we found from experience with these other municipalities, it hasn't been an issue. When people are aware that it's a policy, most people will comply with it.
Exactly.
They see the signs, they'll comply with the signs.
And I agree. I think people monitor themselves, okay? They'll see that, and even they forget, you know, they kick out a cigarette, they'll see it and see the children, and they'll say, well, maybe I should go someplace else, you know? And I think you see that in a lot of places. It's happening today.
And you know, it's not, and obviously there's always issues. I don't know if you knew this, but Joe did a great job of installing signs related to picking up after your dog. And some of those signs disappeared. It's amazing what people will do. But the Penn State Cooperative Extension here in Westmoreland County is offering us the signs, and Ann, am I correct? It's the number we need.
As many as you need.
We would do the install, and hopefully we can do the install with maybe volunteers, Joe. We'll see how that works. But nonetheless, they're going to make the signs and provide them to us.
Possibly putting them someplace where the kids can't get a hold of them because the kid will tear them down.
Well,
Young
Joe puts them up pretty
Young
good.
kids are smokers, you know, and they're smokers, and they're not gonna quit anyway. And they're gonna smoke in the park until somebody tags them or something, you know, so that's where your problem, the adults will probably listen.
Right.
A couple times I was down in the park and I saw kids smoking in the playing area. So a week ago, revitalization met with the Delphi. We read up for they're going to paint the park somehow. And I told them about the smoking bill. And they're cleaning up. They say anybody smoking, they said they get that now. So we're working on that.
And you know, cigarette butts are actually toxic, like everyone, you know, they're.
I think there's some smoking signs around.
Do you folks have any concern on the burning of or grills and that there in the parks back there?
Just tobacco.
Just tobacco. We just know how it affects children, and our concern is that children are not exposed. You know, little children, okay, are having a really great time, and secondhand smoke is really an issue. Particularly if they have asthma or something like
Yeah,
that. because that's
I think it's a
real-
good point
it's a
with,
trigger.
you know, passing a policy and putting the signs up. The message to kids and young people is if you don't make a statement against it, then it must be okay.
What's the zone?
Zone, it's whatever zone you designate in your policy. So if you designate a playground area, that would be your tobacco-free zone.
Or you could say, for example, just to pick on Legion Keener, you could talk about the area where the Fred Rogers wooded part is, you know, where the children play. And for example, say the teenage ball field, no. You can do that. You can parse out a particular park. You could say the entirety of Third Ward, but half of First Ward. I mean, you could parse it, or just say each of the public parks within the city.
Some municipalities went comprehensive and adopted this for all of their parks, and some municipalities phased it in very specific sections of their parks.
It would be best if we did designate specific parks and park areas. Then there's no question, it's a clear ordinance. I think the second thing council wants to think about, do we want to do a policy without penalty at the moment to see if people will follow it? If so, then we could simply do it by resolution with the signage and so forth. If we want to have a penalty put in there, a fine of some sort, then we have to do it by ordinance. The only thing I would suggest is if we want to go that route, we ought to inquire some of the neighboring communities and see what their level of fineage might be for violation.
And I do have copies of all of their policies and their ordinances, and I can
Really?
provide that information to you. Yeah, so when a
Well, the ones around us.
Yes, sure. So when a municipality adopts an ordinance or a resolution, I do obtain a copy of that. And then, you know, just to make sure that all of the necessary components are in it.
You can guess maybe a half dozen, 4 or 5, just something.
Sure. And it does range. Some municipalities feel very, very strongly, and they do impose a fine. Other municipalities want to just state that they are going to monitor the area. If anyone is violating the ordinance, they will ask them to leave the area immediately or to extinguish their tobacco product.
And most of the municipalities that you've dealt with pass an ordinance or a resolution or
Most of the municipalities, right, and for various reasons. Some municipalities were not able to afford the cost of an ordinance. I guess there are costs involved with enacting an ordinance. You have to advertise the ordinance, there's solicitor's fees. So they would rather pass a resolution. A resolution is not as strong a statement as an ordinance, but is certainly acceptable.
As I understand it, you're talking about strictly a policy.
Ordinance or resolution?
Well, ordinance or resolution, regardless of what the vehicle is, you're still establishing a policy. And do we really need a resolution or an ordinance if it's our policy that we'll put up these signs? Can we put the signs up, in short, without a resolution or ordinance?
Well, because of the fact that, I'm going back to when we had the Latrobe Park and Rec Department, that they could not entertain a regulation without council establishing that regulation either by ordinance or by resolution. For example, drinking. We established the no drinking by ordinance. They then would enforce it with their employees or however they wanted to handle it. So no, I would say we just can't go out and do it. We've got to let the public know what the policy is and what the consequences would be if they violate the policy. And just to go out and do it doesn't let them know that.
I'd also like to state too that tobacco, like alcohol, is another legal drug. It is a very highly addictive drug. Nicotine is one of the most prevalent forms of drug abuse in the United States today. And if you feel strongly about prohibiting drugs in your parks and playgrounds, I hope you feel strongly about prohibiting tobacco use. It's highly addictive. And of course, when I first started educational efforts, we didn't think that children could be affected with the nicotine addiction on first attempt. We know different now. We know that the first time a child tries a tobacco product, it alters brain chemistry. They are susceptible to nicotine addiction within the first attempt.
Thank you, Ann. Again, just want to give you guys credit for really championing this in Westmoreland County. It's great to see the progress you made. Thank you.
Thank you. I leave this article with you, and I'm going to leave this extra packet. If anybody wants the packet. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. We'll get into, again, the potential agenda items and then ongoing issues. Of course, we mentioned the young lungs at play already. One of the things we're looking to have on the agenda.
Wait, before we go, are we going to add this to our agenda? The young life?
That's the plan, so you can vote on it then. Is that?
I would like to have a comment.
Well, what's the plan for 4th of July celebration then? I mean, you got thousands of people down there.
They're not supposed to be smoking on school property anywhere. They're not allowed to have stables smoking, they're not allowed to have playground smoking. It's there already.
Okay, doesn't Looper have to have something in
State
this?
properties, you're not allowed to smoke nowhere.
They've recommended this in the past. They're the ones who.
Oh, they're the ones who, I mean, they're the ones who supposedly take care of themselves.
Yeah, they're the ones who pass all these
Yeah, they
years.
come up a couple of years ago.
All right. Thank you.
Anything school property. Well, I would like to put on.
Another thing we're looking at, either the May or potentially June agenda, is related to these alleys. We're finalizing the list. We've got to prepare the language, help the solicitor out, and hopefully I'll get my part of the job done so we can get it advertised.
Thank you.
The garbage contract, I don't know if Richard, you'd like to say a word or two, but we've asked for Republic Allied Waste to give us a 3-month extension, which they have agreed to via email, but we'll probably need to at the May meeting, ratify that. We had, I think, a very productive meeting 2 weeks ago. It's
Would that take us through the end of September?
correct.
And June.
3 months extension.
Oh, yes.
June, yes, July, August, and then through September. The recycle bins are still in the back. If you want to get a chance to look at those, where we're heading on those and get your thoughts on that would be good. Richard, do you have anything to add on garbage?
No, not at this time. I feel we have to look at the ordinance or the proposal again and see because I think the real hang-up is whether it's pay as you throw or not. And, you know, I don't think that has been decided yet. You probably have to go one way or another.
What?
Pay as you throw means that you get the equivalent of a sticker on a bag. Or a charge for a bag.
I think we're gonna take those stickers and hang them in the high street.
Well, I agree with you.
That's a tax.
Most of the hauls do not use stickers. I mean, they manage it without stickers. But you pay on a monthly basis for either one bag, or you pay a little bit more for 2 bags, a little bit more for 3.
So you take the stickers away, what are you gonna do for the revenue that those stickers make?
Well, this would be, the proposal would encompass a franchise fee. And that is going to be our revenue stream into the city. In other words, they're going to theoretically pay us to get the contract. And of course, that fee will be incorporated into the bill.
And they'll charge more what they are charging right now to the people, right?
Pardon?
They'll be charging more to the people.
Right. That's correct. In other words, you either raise the taxes or you bring it in through a franchise fee on the garbage. It's that simple. We theoretically make around, I would say, what, 225,000 to 240,000 a year.
That's our total revenue from,
That's profit
that's profit
on the garbage
currently.
currently.
So our revenue, our franchise fee
Would equal that.
It would equal the stickers.
pardon me?
Would equal the
Well,
stickers.
the way the stickers work currently is, we spend about $3,000 to produce the stickers and sell those for about $100,000.
Right.
But what he's
No, I'm
saying
just-
is,
No, I
there's a-
know, because I was just told for the last 16 years that was never a tax.
Well,
It's a tax.
it's a tax.
It's not a tax.
Yeah.
It's a fee.
It's a fee.
We'll use a different word.
Because the ring, we're rolling out with too.
Well, how will this impact the consumer's garbage bill?
Well,
What are we paying currently?
well, actually,
What's our current
It's
6-month
about
rate?
$188
$80.
Yes,
plus stickers.
plus
$8
stickers.
plus stickers, yeah.
plus stickers.
Now, what will this go to if we remove the stickers from the equation?
Well, I'll let you figure it out. I'll give you the figures, and then you can do the math.
but that's part of the idea of the bid, is we don't know what the asking price will be until we bid it, at a price. I do know that in municipalities that do not, if you will, grant a monopoly for a contractor for 5 years, that individual homeowners tend to pay more in that environment. By saying to a vendor, here's your your market, you lock in a lower price, it's like power buying. And that's the benefit we're giving to the residents. Now, at the end of the day, with the franchise fee, power buying, still, will they be paying less in the alternative environment? It remains to be seen. We just have to bid it and get the price in.
Yeah, and some will and some won't.
No, it shouldn't change.
No, a sheet of stickers lasts me all year.
Well, you're gonna pay for 1 bag a week.
You mean we're going to, everybody will be paying a different amount? Each individual household?
Right, they can choose whether they wanna have a 1-sticker house, a 2-sticker house.
Well, that's
a 3
Even bag.
And that's part of what we're trying to decide.
That's ridiculous.
If you do a pay-as-you-throw,
Yes.
it would disincentivize throwing a lot of garbage out because you'll pay more. So I
Right.
mean, again, that's sort of what Richard said is part of the nuance what we're trying to arrive upon. The idea also is we introduce weekly recycling of cardboard and all different kinds of single stream materials. People will be able to reduce their waste stream that way by recycling more. Recycle more, waste less.
And we're going to, as this contract is being bid as a weekly recycling pickup,
Yes.
then I definitely think we should go with no more than the middle-sized container.
I want, that's all I need in
Yeah.
the middle.
Well, that's what we'd be bidding.
What about
if it's
people with big
65
families?
gallon.
What about people with big families?
They have to learn to squish their stuff. But
Well,
yeah.
no, but I mean, it's fine and dandy for 1 or 2 people to use a smaller size. But if you got families.
The challenge we have is, we're going to say to the bidders, this is the standard, let's say it's 65. We'll allow for options for some people to maybe upgrade. But the bidders need to be bidding on one size. They need to know you have 3,000 customers, I gotta buy, because essentially they're buying 3,000.
Is the recycling place guaranteeing that they're gonna separate the stuff and actually recycle it, or are they just gonna dump it?
That's an interesting word, guarantee, but right now it's currently all being collected down in Devil Island, all of it, whether it's waste, Allied Waste, Republic, or Waste Management, whoever. And as far as I can tell, it's being used appropriately. Am I able to guarantee, or is anybody able to guarantee that? I don't know. There are like markets. I mean, it's like everything else. You got a paper market, you got a can market. And so as prices fluctuate, demand fluctuates.
Yeah, price is done, just throw it.
Yeah, I mean, the word guarantee, I don't know. I mean, I think the intent of the Pennsylvania regulations would forbid anybody doing that, but I'm not the DEP. But I would imagine that's the nature of it.
So basically, the more you use, the more you're gonna pay. Is that
Would there
almost
be
like
a-
a water company, like, they give you a certain amount after you go over it, and you're paying more for your water? Is that gonna be like a arbitrary?
Well, yeah, I guess how you stated is correct, but
So what's the limit going on?
the
Everybody
garbage
gets 3 times a
company,
week?
the garbage companies right now, those garbage haulers, when you go with them in Dairy Township and Unity Town, and in soon to be Unity Township, you state when you sign up with them whether you want to pay for 1 bag a week, or 2, or 3, and you have to adhere to that. And it'll be more for 2 bags and more for 3 bags. And that's the way this.
Would the bidding, Richard, determine, would the bidding determine if the cost per bag is greater than the cost per sticker? Well, I mean, if I put out 3 bags, I think stickers are what, 30 cents a sticker, 10 for.
That's not going to be a factor.
Well, I mean, if it cost me $1 a bag for each bag I put out, and it cost me 30 cents for each sticker I put on a bag, that's pretty.
I mean, if you want to compare like Union Township and Dairy Township and Youngstown, stuff like that, they can put out 1 bag a week, most families, because they're allowed to burn once a week or twice a week. Are we gonna be doing that?
No.
No, the average,
Then don't compare us with the other townships,
Yeah, most
okay?
definitely.
the
No,
average.
I'm not, I'm just saying,
I was asking Richard.
there's no burn barrels in the damn city. That's all we need.
Well,
Burn barrels.
Fabian, the average consumer uses about 92 bags a year, the average consumer in the city. This fellow only uses 1, I use 3, so that's how we get our
Right.
184 bags a year between the 2 families. But that's the average, and that's what we're telling the proposal, or the people that are going to bid on this.
Would it be a fair statement then that if I pay $80 every 6 months, that's $160 a year,
Yes.
and if I'm an average family, I'm gonna have $30 in stickers. So my average cost per year ought to be around $190, $200, let's say. Wouldn't that be a number that we'd want to compare to in the proposals that we're getting?
It should be favorably close to that. However, you can't depend on the haulers keeping the same price as we have now.
And right now, you guys are just putting out the bid, right? You're just waiting for bids to come
Right.
in, so we don't know what it is.
How are you gonna control if I'm a 1 bag man? And
You're
I
a
put
double
out
bagger.
3 bags 1 week.
We are not going to control it. That's up to
So
the
the garbage
hauler.
man's gonna carry a list of every household saying, this person gets 1 bag, this person gets 2
It may
bags.
surprise you to know that they do that for these 18,000 homes that are in Dairy Township. They know
Really?
how many bags, they learn. That's their business. It's not our business to go out and count bags. That has to be the successful hauler.
Yeah, but we're relying on them to be honest about it.
But
There's
it
no
doesn't
window
matter,
right
it
there.
doesn't
for-
matter, Yeah, we're relying on their honesty, but how can they be dishonest if if they don't collect the money,
They're losing out.
they're gonna lose money?
Yeah, they got membership.
So they're gonna come through and say, I got 4 bags out when I got 1.
Pardon?
They can come through and say, I had 4 bags out when I had 1. How's that gonna be
Well,
controlled?
yeah, that would be, that'd be an unusual case, but I would think that we are going to have administrative backup here at the office.
Well, I'm not sure I follow you, Stuffy. I mean, what Richard is saying.
We're relying
theoretically-
on the garbage company to count the bags and tell us what each person had out.
No, you pay for it. In other words, you're a subscriber for a 3-bag-a-week person. So when you throw out 5 bags that week, they're only gonna pick up 3. You're a subscriber for a 3-week person. You throw out 1 bag, they're gonna pick up 1. It's just, that's the deal. That's what he's saying. He's just saying they have a manifest for each customer, just like a milk delivery truck does, that says, up and down this street, this is a 5-house, this is a 3-house.
You can't change it. Once you designate what you're gonna be, you can't change it.
You're saying that they go back to the office and they say, I picked up 2 from Stuffy today.
My mother
I
lives in
picked up
Derry
1 from-"
Township. She can put out as many bags as she wants. She is on the policy for up to 1 bag a week. If she puts out 3 bags or something during Christmas or anything, when the grandkids are up or whatnot, then on her bill, it reflects she's been charged more. I mean, you rely on
And they have a
them.
dispute clause, so if she argues with them, because they said that she picked up 5, and she said I bought 3, there's gonna be some sort of administrative remedy to dispute those issues, and we get those all the time right now.
I think what Stuffy's saying though is that you're not held to a given number.
No.
If I put 5 out and I'm only a 1 bag, that's how it is for my wife up in Williamsport. She's on 1 bag. But if she puts out 2, the next bill that comes out, there's that extra charge for that extra bag.
Right.
And if she puts 3 out the next week, then there's 3 bags that's charged for.
You can't sign up for 1 bag a week and then theoretically put out 4 bags a week for 52 weeks. You should sign up.
Well, you
for-
could,
Well,
you
you
just
could,
pay.
they do.
They could, but it would make sense, because it's probably cheaper to sign up for 4 bags a week than to pay the extra
Yeah,
bag.
if you could, you'd pay.
What's the difference between that and a sticker?
How could this be any different?
Yeah.
And we haven't found that out yet, because we're waiting for bids,
It's
so
different than-
we're talking about stuff we don't.
Well, we've
Yeah,
eliminated the need.
In Latrobe, you have the good neighbor policy. When you leave, your neighbor's gonna put the extra bags that they had on yours. So you pay them next month.
So we're gonna be looking at that. Obviously, we got a lot to talk about when that comes up. We hope at the April meeting to get some people to appoint to the Civil Service Commission, and we still need 2 people for the Zoning Hearing Board. So if you want to encourage your friends and neighbors to consider serving the city, that would be very helpful. The next couple slides are just related to parking issues, maybe at the May, but it looks like even the June meeting, we'll be looking at the rate structure, the fine structure, the fee structure for parking. We need to start getting our head around the numbers. You have been given to you a proposal of rates. For example, in the half-an-hour environment, people pay 25 cents for an hour. They may, under this proposal, be paying 50 cents. However, the council will have to adopt an ordinance, whether that's 30 cents for an hour, 45 cents for an hour, or 50 cents for an hour. We have to figure out what those numbers are, make it into an ordinance, and adopt it. And then we need to change all the equipment to recognize the new rates. So there's a lot to think about on this issue. The proposal is just that. It's a starting point for discussion. Numbers can go up, they can go down. What we want to have is enough revenue coming in to cover our obligations related to the parking garage and any associated fees. The rates may not need to go up as high in order to do that. We want to find what that right number is to be able to be have confidence that we're not going to have to raise them every couple of years or so.
Are you suggesting that the parking garage should not pay for itself, that we should drain funds from the other parking lots in order to pay for the reconstruction of the garage?
Didn't pay for itself.
It didn't pay for itself before.
Well, then you'll have to get the rates sufficient.
That's what he's saying.
No, he's not. He's saying across the board. We're just taking them from everywhere else. We're going to use that to pay for the parking garage. You're not saying.
Yeah, Richard, it's really at the council's discretion to do that. If you guys would like to.
Well, I know, but we have to get into the discussion of that. That's my point, is that we have to discuss that. Are the users of the parking garage, the ones that requested it, are they going to have to pay? primarily to retire the bond issue.
What was that statement?
Not as long as we have that shiny new ladder truck downstairs.
Well,
Paying for that.
Well,
Well, that
okay,
parking
that
garage,
takes
that
up
parking.
25% of the
Out of
bond.
the other parking, they're paying that out of there.
Pardon?
They're paying for that out of the other parking off the streets and stuff
Yeah,
like that, and other stuff.
in other words, the bond issue itself, 25% of that goes for the payment of the ladder truck. The other 75%, I guess the question is, I'm asking is, are we going to set the rates in the parking garage so that it'll completely pay for that other 75%?
And you price yourself out of business.
Yeah, that's the challenge, Richard, quite frankly. If, for example, you keep the passes on all the lots at $30, but let's say, for example, because of the requirement of the garage bond issue requires it's a $75 permit, I think what Mike is saying, we run the risk of having an empty garage with full lots. The magic, if you will, is trying to determine the supply-demand curve point where the right price gets us the right amount of revenue. If we raise them too high, we'll drive, no pun intended, traffic away. If they're right, we'll get the right kind of revenue. But that's a great question. I wish I had the right answer. I wish I knew.
It's
Here's the right-
policy, it doesn't require an answer, it's a policy whether or not, how much you're going to expect how much of that bond issue do you expect the garage itself to pay? And what's the payment a month? I think it's what?
$30 is what we pay.
$225,000 a month is the bond payment per year.
Alex, what are the hourly times we have to use money in the meters? Is there a certain time during the day? Because I don't think there's any signs or anything posted, you know, or do we have to put it in 24 hours a day?
After 5 o'clock PM, I think.
3 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday, Saturday, I think we increased it.
We eliminated that, didn't we?
Eliminated Saturday, I thought we increased it.
No.
We eliminated Saturdays.
I think that some stickers ought to be put on those, the parking meters and also on a lot sign.
We like after-hour donations, but having said that, the ordinance is searchable online. Enforcement happens mainly between 8 and 5. So, you know, that kind of, by default, is part of it. But right now, I'm not sure what the exact ordinance says. If it's 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, nonetheless, it's not a bad
All
idea
I'm
to
saying is
sign.
how many people know the ordinance? Very few know what the times are. They probably say, well, you know, whenever the stores are open, I'm gonna put money in the meter. They don't know what time they have to stop putting money in the meter.
And again, I don't want
It
to
should be
discourage them to
posted.
do off-hour donations to us. But we can post it. I mean, that's, again, it's another cost associated with it. Some towns do that. They try to incentivize evening activities by saying free parking after 5. This is an issue that's emerged. Many of you know we have a annual health care that comes up in July 1. As of today, we are currently covered by Highmark through June, and our renewal quote is coming in at about 17%. In the last number of years, since council adopted a policy that increased the amount of deductible that the city's responsible for, we had an 8.7 increase in 07-08, a 4.8% increase in 08-09, a 9.7 09-010, and last year 4.9% increase in the 10 or 11-12 year, which is we're in currently, beginning last year, July. This year, the proposal we're looking at is about 17%. So I'm going out and we're going to shop that for the first time in a number of years. We're going to ask our employees to fill out a small survey. We call it a census, so we can get a good quote from another provider, and that's the direction we're going to take. Then in June or thereabouts, you'll be looking at who that new provider option is and what the rate is.
In the last AFSCME contract that we negotiated here, we got the city employees to begin paying some of that deductible
and also pay some of the monthly premium.
Currently-
And it graduates through the contract.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the arbitrator for the FOP, we offered the same deal to the FOP, but the arbitrator for the FOP, the state arbitrator said, no, you have to give them their health care at no charge.
But basically, here's how it works, just so you know. All employees pay $20 a month, and it includes both the FOP and the ASPE. And then they pay up to $200 of their deductible. So,
It's a $1,250 deductible plan.
and it's not per month, it's per pay, I'm sorry. So 26 pays
Right.
times $20 is what they contribute to their health care, plus up to $200 for family and $100 for single health care persons. Both contracts were written with the language that uses the word Highmark, but also has a little prevailing one provided by the city. So we can switch vendors. For example, if we wanted to go to XYZ Health Insurance Company beginning July 1, we could do that.
Once you do that, Alice, is there a way, I know there's a way, but do you have the time and the ability to break down the cost of this health care per employee? Then we could say over 2,080 hours, if we're paying $2,080 for this health care a year, that adds $1 an hour to their wages. Give them some kind of breakdown, let them know how much the city's contributing towards their benefits.
Sure, we could show that to them. Right now,
That's just an
currently,
example. If we pay $2,080 for annual insurance, then it's like giving them, they're getting $1 an hour.
yeah, the family coverage rate we have right now is $1,147.55.
So times 12 months is,
That's a significant benefit being provided to.
And if you break that, divide that into 2,080 hours, there's how much per hour that adds up to that.
You don't have a pen.
Probably about
Anyways,
$7.
at least give us a pencil to bond back. Thanks.
With the hospital, the way the hospitals are fighting over, like with Highmark and UPMC and that there, we want to be a little bit careful.
Well, that's exactly it. We believe, or I believe, I'm confident if I can shop this, that we can get a good rate from a competitor. But what you do is you go back to Highmark and you say, here's what we're looking at. Can you match this? Can you do better? And if not, you walk.
We don't want to put the screws in Latrobe Hospital for some reason or something like that. too.
Latrobe Hospital's in both the major insurance providers, UPMC and
They're not
Highmark.
tied to anywhere.
Oh, okay.
And health insurance. And Health America Health Insurance.
Now, can we switch providers, can we switch providers when there is slight differences in the coverage that we're providing our employees?
Yeah, again, the contracts both say, here's what it is, as far as what it is now, and the prevailing one. It has to be a similar kind
There's a
of
baseline,
coverage.
but I mean, if one plan covers chiropractic care 20 sessions a year, and the other one is 10 sessions a year, I mean, can we make that switch?
Not without negotiating.
I thought it has to be equal, you can switch, but it
As
has
long as
to
it's
be.
equal or better, equal or
Yeah,
better.
no. But,
And you define equal or better.
right, exactly. What if the one that only offering 10 back manipulations offers 2 pedicures a year?
Or, drug no
I
patients.
mean,
I'm just saying, if the benefits are not comparable, yes, we've got to negotiate.
Right, they're not the same, they have to be the
Pretty
same.
much the same, you're right. You're gonna run into agreements. like we
And
did.
In my experience dealing with labor unions and healthcare benefits, the healthcare provider, when you know that, and they know that, they're gonna quote you very, very
Yes,
They'll
comparable.
tailor a policy.
Comparable plans that you're not gonna have any bones of contention over negotiating.
Yeah, you're right, even if you negotiate, doesn't mean it won't be accepted.
Right.
these are some FYI items. We're looking at painting the building in June, July. Parking garage, significant issues with the parking garage. I'm gonna start with the elevator. Here's a picture of the elevator here in this image. As you know, we did not receive any bids on the elevator. Very troubling. We received bids on plumbing and electric. The reason that's troubling is because you have to build an elevator and it takes time. You just can't go to Lowe's and buy the parts like you can on the plumbing. You gotta custom it. It's a shaft, it's a space, you gotta do it. And we're running into issues. We've already extended the bid to this Friday. And as of today, I'm still hearing from vendors their ability to turn around on that bid is problematic. And there's a number of other issues related to the way the elevator was spec'd by our contractor, Carl Walker. So it's a significant issue. We've got to monitor this closely. If we want to get the garage open in August, this could be something that slows us down. And Joe and others and us are working to try to not have that happen. But nonetheless, I'd love for any council member to come by and I can spend some more time talking about the elevators and garage issues.
Is it required by law to have it?
We are, what we're going to do.
I thought you got federal grant money and you had to have it handicapped accessible.
No.
That's, well then how do we get away with the garage not having an elevator for what?
Nobody enforced it. Nobody enforced that.
Part of what we're doing is we're going to put enough handicap spaces on the Spring and Weldon Street level that will meet our minimum requirements for ADA. We're doing that primarily to save money on sidewalk curb cuts addressing the elevator. Now, we haven't determined that in its level of detail. But in other words, if we don't mess the sidewalk around the elevator platform where these guys are standing, we save some money. If we do, then we got to put the ramps in, and again, that will be a cost of judgment. I'm in favor of adding the ramps because I think people use strollers. I think people need that for convenience, but that's still an unsettled issue. But to answer your question, we're going to provide for ADA accessibility primarily through the first floor, not necessarily through the elevator. And what we found though,
you haven't answered the question. Is it a law that we're required to have an elevator?
I'm saying no.
What does the lawyer say?
I'm not saying anything.
You
No,
know.
I have to look at the ADA Act. We have to provide accessibility. Now, how that accessibility
Yeah.
occurs
If there's a fire, they
could
can't
be in
use
a
it
number of
anyway,
ways.
you know?
Could be in a number of ways. If we provide accessibility to the Spring Street area, basically by pulling in parking there and pulling back out again, now I don't know if that can be done.
Again, we're doing that with
Yeah.
designated handicap spaces on this.
Yeah.
But again, I think the issue for us
It's gonna
is,
be a big cost, is what I'm saying.
the
you know,
issue for us
sustain that cost.
is people's willingness to walk. The elevator had been closed for a long period of time. But I believe to get the most utilization out of the garage is to provide an elevator. And most utilization means most revenue. And most revenue gets us closer to what Richard Jim had mentioned earlier, which is paying back our bond obligation.
I wanted to bring out one point. I had the opportunity to look at the first quarter's revenues and expenses, and I did a little arithmetic, and it seemed to me like, except for the unusual events that we've had, that is the practically saltless January, February, and March, and the unusual amount of revenue that we've gotten through the transfer station, it seemed to me that we actually overspent by $55,000 in the first quarter. And if we continue, it would be about $220,000 for the year that we would have overspent, except for these two unusual events. And my question, I guess, goes back to this, that maybe next year we're not going to have a hailstorm.
We won't have that kind of revenue, and we'll adopt the budget appropriately.
Well, what I'm saying is, should we not be minding our P's and Q's right now?
Through the first quarter, we spent less than we budgeted through the first quarter.
Okay, $55,000 less?
90.
If you look at the numbers again, we did save on salt. We're spending more on fuel, and we are getting more revenue through the transfer station, which we anticipated. We built a budget based on that anticipated revenue.
I understand the budget is going to balance, but what's going to happen?
Hopefully, it does better. We actually spend more than we budgeted,
Okay.
make more than we budgeted.
What I'm saying is,
That's the goal.
next year, you'll probably not have that
No doubt.
$220,000.
That's why we're doing the early intervention plan, to have a 5-year budget based on realistic revenue projections and modest expenditure projections.
Plus, we're attempting to enhance the revenue stream at the transfer station through some other means.
Well,
at this point, we don't know exactly what they are, but.
Well, okay, all right, you're entering into union negotiations and we're theoretically losing $55,000 a quarter.
That's the best way to do it.
That's right.
Best way to go into negotiations.
I like the way you're going, Richard. Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? You can't, okay, so.
Yeah, it's not a rosy
understand.
picture. When I've
It's
been
an
with the
unfortunate
FRP,
circumstance, but that is, the books are what they are.
yeah, we've had 2 meetings with the Fraternal Order of Police Union, and those initial meetings have made it very clear that these are anomalies. 4 years before last year, we spent more than we took in. We drew down a general fund balance, and in the meantime, we raised taxes twice during that period. So I've made it clear to them, and yeah, going forward, this isn't a rosy picture. We are an endangered species. There are a number of our compatriots around the Commonwealth who are in Act 47, including the state capital, Reading, Pittsburgh, Aliquippa, Farrell, Johnstown, and some of those have been in for almost 20 years now. If we don't change the trajectory of this borough, which is in this city, which is kind of what I'm trying to do it in being hired here, we will be in what is considered the receivership, bankrupt, with the Act 47 program. We must do differently. And part of the early intervention program is trying to be strategic and plan and be innovative to develop new revenue streams. Go back to garbage stickers. We can't rely on the real estate tax. It's not growing. In fact, it's falling. Even when we've raised taxes, our evaluation that's assessed to our properties is decreasing. Not to mention the number of properties that have gone tax exempt.
So you can't keep on building, selling houses and these places that put little parking lots in for themselves, and then they're tax exempt people. Just can't keep on doing it. Eventually, we have to step on somebody's toes here.
Richard, it's a great challenge. I'm glad you're bringing it up. I mean,
I'm truly concerned because I think that if we do next year like we're doing this year, we're going to have to raise the taxes by about 4 or 5 mils.
Sell the parking garage.
I wish. We'll fix it up and then put it for sale. Just a little thing, again, we're going to be doing the pay and go parking app. Stay tuned for that. We've done the discussion about on-street parking on Depot. We won't implement this, which has been approved by council, until after the Unity Lloyd Avenue traffic light gets recalibrated. Right now, many of us believe a lot of the backup into town is because of the holdup at the Unity Lloyd Avenue traffic light at the BP Sunoco station for the southbound 981 traffic. After that gets recalibrated, the signal, then we'll introduce the meters per discussed and approved by council.
So we're going to get that letter from PennDOT.
Yes, we have to get approval by PennDOT. We need to submit. We've done this study preliminarily. We've gotten all we need to do. We just need to submit that and get that approved from PennDOT. How quickly that happens, I don't know. Maybe June. I don't know.
And it's my understanding that the no turn on red will be eliminated.
Yes.
Where?
When you're southbound at Unity Street on Lloyd Avenue, currently there's a restriction for right-hand turns on red signals. So we're looking to address that. Southbound 981 at the BP.
Turning right at the Atlanta station.
Whoa. You might as well not have to sign up anyhow. Nobody stops for it anyhow.
It's just like, it's not like a yield sign. They go right through. They try to beat you coming from the other way and stuff.
And if there's a car in front and they happen to stop, they go through the gas station. So.
Unfortunately.
Believe it, on that traffic thing, when you make the light longer on Lloyd Avenue, now when you're on Unity Street, it's up to past the stop sign most of the time after 3 o'clock. So if you make it longer on Lloyd, it's going to be up.
We're going to switch the signal. Right now, the northbound traffic has a 10 to 18 second or so left-hand turn movement, which very few cars are making. Even when it's empty, everybody southbound has to wait. We're going to switch the signal to get this northbound, the southbound out of there, flush that. we're gonna shorten the cycle for that turning movement in there. So it's not about just simply trying to lengthen the time that the Lloyd moves. It's about reconfiguring the way that turn movement happens so you get the traffic out of there. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna be sensitive though to that. Eventually, when the Chestnut Bottling Factory or whatever sells, the lane will have to be looked at depending on the number of employees and the movements out of that facility as well. Part of my suspicion is that's part of the reason why that light behaves the way it does. It assumes there's 250 employees coming out of there and there's trucks, but they're not. And we're all waiting for them, but they're not.
That light came in here, Ken Mills here, 1,000 points over there. That's
So
the
it's sort of
light that's put in there.
behaving
Right.
under assumptions that are no longer.
Because the hospital was busy too at that time, had a lot of employees, and they couldn't get over there because all the metal employees coming on.
Yeah.
That's not like was put in there.
Yeah,
To do that, handle that traffic up there.
The left-hand turn on the
Right.
northbound.
Yeah, to give them a chance.
Yeah. We're gonna be, we've got the agreement just about done. We'll get to Jim, our new agreement with AFSCME and their labor agreement. FOP, I think I've sent council notices related to this, and it's in your manager's report, so you want to take note of that.
Meeting's Tuesday, right, Ally?
Who does the negotiating on that?
Currently, it starts with me. I've been hired to do that under the Home Rule Charter. That's my purview. Council will ratify any agreement under Richard Jim's watch. We'll be sure that the budgetary concerns are foremost. Act 537, again, we talked about this one a number of times. I'm in receipt of a letter from Unity Township, which I've shared with the solicitor and is in your inbox from Unity Township. And I will call your attention to the next to the last paragraph on page 3. You might want to read that. The language I think you'll find interesting. But this letter is it's with Gary Falatovich's letterhead, and it's addressed to myself. So you might want to look at some of that. These, the discussion continues between UTMA, Unity Township, LMA, and so forth.
By the way, I talked to Tom Gray, as soon as the batch plants are open, the authority will see that these holes will be patched.
Excellent.
They're already in contract.
When do they anticipate these states answering or approving our plan?
They don't. Right now, that's an unknown. What the state will do, what we anticipate, at least from my understanding, is at the minimum of some sort of approval or come back with you need to do X, Y, Z. And there's two different plans, very different being that are proposed. It's far from being done. These are just another salvo in the ongoing discussion about what direction the whole system will take.
It's still a squabble.
Well, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. The community college has tentatively 2 of the 3 properties in a handshake, in some sort of agreement. These are the properties.
Chauncey and Domino's, those
Correct.
properties. Excellent.
Domino's is supposedly going to be inside the college now.
I don't know about that, but the property owned by Mr. Dulac, leased to Domino's, is not, under, again, a handshake kind of agreement with the community college. The 3rd property, the L&L Quick Loop, is yet to be settled. So you can get an idea from this map, but previous maps, kind of what we're talking about, Regis Thompson's building, and so forth. This was something I shared with council. It goes back to Richard's concerns. Quite frankly, a number of cities around the Commonwealth, with their chambers of commerce, have realized that cities are an endangered species, must behave differently or they will become extinct. And who wants to be the Chamber of Commerce of a city that's declared bankruptcy? Like, for example, the Reading Chamber of Commerce. Kind of hard to promote your city when it's struggling that much financially. These are the 3 issues. Act 47, which we're not in, and it's not as germane to us, but Act 111, which is binding arbitration, and municipal pension reform. Quite frankly, in the past, our pensions, historically, and binding arbitration have put cities at disadvantages, not only in the current, but in the future. And I think some of us are aware of this, even in Social Security at the national level. The less workers we have in the workforce, the more retirees we have, it's not sustainable. The pyramid gets flipped upside down, it topples. Look at Greece, look at Europe. So what we need to do is have some real reform in Harrisburg that allows cities to be able to fairly negotiate contracts, and pension reform to allow for some innovative movements towards the employee responsibility and less from our future obligations.
While you're borrowing my pen and taking notes on, can you also get a per employee cost of pension? And then for both the healthcare and pension, get a per capita cost?
Okay. I would recommend council look at some of these things, and who knows, maybe the Latrobe Area Chamber of Commerce and the city of Latrobe will want to become part of the coalition. I mentioned the early intervention plan. I have copies of the schedule for council. You can get an idea of what the schedule of the plan will be for that. I do want to inform the property owners of Latrobe that they need to have their buildings numbered. 911, the police, fire, ambulance need to be able to see numbers. It's hard to respond to an emergency when we can't read legibly from the street the numbers. So we do have an ordinance in this town which requires those to be visible. And it's that time of year where our code enforcement officer will be making the rounds around town and sending people letters saying, would you please put a number on your house, on your building. So just FYI, inform your friends and family. There are discussions maybe doing what the First Ward Hose Company did in the past, which is maybe work with some people as maybe a bit of a fundraiser, but for people who can't afford or aren't able to put numbers up at a low cost, get it to them. But there's a small amount of money maybe to be made for the fire companies. But nonetheless, please, if you don't have a number on your building, get it up there. The St. Vincent Trail, I think you read the paper. There's some more grant money that's been secured by the Latrobe Foundation and the Latrobe Community Revitalization Program to do this. This is a very high priority. It's remarkable how many college students don't realize the town that's nearby, and their parents as well, and we need to capitalize on the economic potential and create a trail between the college and here.
Also negotiate between the police force and the College Point.
Slow, mainly because of it's in my court. I've got to work on finalizing. We got a draft that we're circulating, but it's in my court right now. 415 Lloyd Avenue, if you guys notice, the utility poles are gone except for one property, a property that's in sheriff's sale. And we have to figure out a way to get an easement of some sort. We do have an easement already with Unity Run, whether that just applies to the ground or underground or air rights, I'm not sure, but nonetheless, hopefully we'll resolve the issue at 415 Lloyd and be able to get rid of those poles and continue on to future phases. We will be revamping the city's website for a small amount of money that was approved in this year's budget, and stay tuned for that. Events, there's many more that I know I haven't listed, but some of the possible ones are some idea of Steeler Fest when the Steelers come to town. You may be doing an Oktoberfest with our brewery and getting some certain volunteer days. But we are doing a national night out. The city of Latrobe Police Force will be sponsoring that, and look for that in August. St. Vincent Move-In Day, about 400 or 500 kids volunteer that day. On the Move-In Day, we look to get them active in our city as well as a volunteer effort. This is your police service agreement. Lloyd Avenue Bridge, no update on that. We do have a building for sale. One of our largest taxpayers is currently for sale if you'd like to buy that building. We will be mailing to every resident a Latrobe community map, which will be paid for by the sponsors of the map. People bought ads. You'll be seeing those coming out soon. Not much revitalization and outreach. I think I've covered just about everything. There's so much more even in the report that you've been given. If you have any questions, please come to see me. I have two last items that I need to share, or Joe would be upset with me. On the May agenda, I'll give this to you, Solicitor. We'll be looking to award a salt bid. We're part of the Indiana Westmoreland Council of Governments, and through power buying are able to secure a good price on salt, which we look at participating on in this year. The price, as quoted in the bids $68.55 per ton, which is about $3.65 over last year's price. Would you like to elaborate any on that, Joe?
No, it's just that there were 5 bids through the Indiana Westmoreland cog, and that was the lowest. Two were close. We have dealt with this company before.
On the issue of proposed paving budget, Joe's provided this for you as well. And basically, we're looking at about $190,000 in paving this year, including the roads or areas is listed on that sheet. The alley behind Lincoln Road Shopping Center, West 2nd Avenue, and it's specified Gertrude and Tacoma and so forth. I would like to note that for about 35 miles, right, the ideal is that roads of heavy use get resurfaced and taken care of about once every 10 years. Roads that are minimally used, it's higher, maybe once every 20 years. I would say, Joe, it's maybe fair to say that this is about a 1 every 50 year investment. So in other words, we are not investing at the level, nor are we able to invest at the level that I would say is acceptable in a community of our character and quality. Just so you know, it's very expensive to pave roads, back to the LMA and repairs of streets. We might long for the days when they were as good as they are today, if we keep up this kind of investment schedule for decades.
Okay. These guys, they do their own paving or they bid those out?
That's going to be bid out. It will. I think it's already bid out, and now they just wait for the batch plant to open up. So,
Ligonier Street is already down by the brewery. That's already under contract with Tresco. They're just waiting for the batch plants to open. Jefferson Street down here in 2 different areas, that has to be bid. I met with Tom Gray the other day. That's as per
Okay,
Tom.
now some of their patchwork, like when they had to break the water lines and stuff like that, I'm even saying 2 years ago, something like that, they're all, what did they do? We're responsible at that point? They patched it the first time?
What they do is a temporary repair.
Okay.
They have so long, especially a lot of it's in the winter cold months. Then the following year they come up and they do a permanent repair, which they are responsible for 2 years.
And that's it?
Mm-hmm.
LMA does.
One last issue related to paving, and I just don't want to get council's hopes beyond what's, appropriate expectations. I did mention the alley behind the Lincoln Shopping Center. Please drive that. It's almost there's some property owners who aren't able even to get into their properties because of its condition. Having said that, we are trying to get alleys into our system. Having said that, at the level of investment you do now, you can't afford to touch those alleys, even if they're taking in revenue for liquid fuels. The roads of this town need further investment than even what that will generate within our system. And again, back to that long-term mentality. I hope we can find ways over the years to invest more in our roads. Cities exist for the public safety and health and welfare, protecting people's property and their purses. Roads are an essential function of local government, a high priority. However, at this level of investment that we're proposing and we've historically done, it's not going to cut it. Again, you can't look to 20 and every 30 years touching roads. We see for the good of the order of questions, tomorrow's primary election day. Please get out and vote. I hope you guys will do your civic duty and do that.
I just wanted to bring council up to speed on something. A while back, Mike, you had asked about drafting our own local zoning ordinance relative to the Marcellus Shale industry. I was at a seminar about 3 or 4 weeks ago. The best advice I could give council at this point is do nothing and accept the money that we will ultimately receive from the impact fee that's going to be paid. Basically, our ability to limit anything is so severely limited by state law. And if we pass an ordinance that is in violation of state law, we can lose that funding, and there are fines and penalties that go along with it. In effect, we have to sit back and let the litigation play out as to what the local municipalities can or cannot do.
As many of you know, Act 13 was passed which preempted local government control in specific areas related to zoning ordinances. Peters Township, among other communities, have been successful in getting a court injunction on that provision of the law, so that remains to be seen. They have asked, if council is interested, for communities who want to support the further eroding of local control in zoning to at least pass resolutions supporting Peters Township, not necessarily asking us to pony up, but if council's so interested, you might want to look into some. And I think I've shared some of those with you. And again, the issue really, quite frankly, is local control. Whether it's gambling, or the state stores, or liquor licenses, so many things the state has said, we'll decide where those get located in your community, including drilling and the preemptions related to gas and oil. And so a lot of communities have said enough is enough. We can control locally through zoning the use and placement of these things. You can regulate and permit them, but don't tell us where we can't say they can be. We have residential areas we might want to protect, or other areas. So that's the issue. The crux of the issue is local control and who gets the say, and if we're interested, we could jump in on it.
The pragmatic thing is, quite simply, you need about 10 acres to put up a well. There aren't many places in Latrobe that any driller could put a well. So, I mean, in terms of regulation, I don't think it's.
They could put one at Standard Steel.
That'd be one.
They're gonna put one in LMA down there, and I know that's probably down at the sewage plant. They're gonna do that, and that's a dairy township, but that's gonna affect our residents with round-the-clock drilling and everything else, just like they did over our highways, over at the Elks. But can you tell me, and this is water after the dam, water over the dam, what did that act do to existing legislation? Did it
Oh yeah, it most certainly did. It did not grandfather restrictions. It basically is preempting the local control and restriction through local zoning ordinances. And then again, that's the crux of the issue for, quite frankly, a number of townships who can fight it.
That's what the litigation is all about right now, basically. And until the dust settles on that, we see which way the courts are going to go. Any community would be advised to not necessarily enact any further legislation.
And back to the revenue, I think it's not a lot, 20,000 possible a year may come into Latrobe as a result of the fee, the impact fee. There's a lot that remains to be seen on that. It needs to be invested where the impact is, in my mind. Prudence dictates it should go into roads primarily, and then maybe on environmental improvements related to our park system. So that
do half the alley behind it.
What we could do theoretically is, like, every 3 or 4 years, it goes straight into the roads, and every 5th year, 1 out of every 4 years, 1 out of every 3 years go into parks. Again, as an offset, because the environmental impact is part of it, but the roads are the primary impact. The bridges, the infrastructure.
Anything else?
Yes, 333 Main Street, I understand.
I heard it sold today, yeah, or this week, rather.
Does anybody know what the plans are?
Not yet, I'm inquiring of it.
Is that the yellow brick?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also understand Flex Appeal, are they closing up? They
It
close
looks like
shop?
it's-
Those will be, that's purchased by Delphi, and they'll be removing those structures.
Who, what, who?
Delphi Inc.,
Oh,
USA.
okay.
We gonna build homes there?
Right now, that's what they're looking at doing, a new driveway access. If you drive by there on your left-hand side between the Flex Appeal and I don't know if it's an accountant, there's a little planner.
Right.
That in that general vicinity, they're looking at putting a new driveway, new entry into their whole campus there.
Everything off the map of,
That's a yellow brick building. Big yellow brick.
Okay. 614.
It's right up there on Main Street, across from the campus.
That's the Wiseman building up there?
Oh.
Yellow building.
Exactly.
Are we done?
I'm done.
Anybody else? Okay, Jim, could you stay for, I want to talk with you a minute. You?
Oh, okay.
I'm not bad, just want to ask you something.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Alex, for everything. Alex?
I I